first you pick up one jack, then you pick up two jack, then you pick up three jack. Then you one when you finish, you pick up all of them at one time. Yeah. Now, one, two, three. Okay. I want to go to my next game now. I want to pick up two at a time. Two. Then I'll pick up three. Then I'll pick up. And I'll pick up four. Would you see where this is over here? That's a box. Four. Then four. Then whoops. Then what's this thing? Can you look at the picture? Then all right, when you pick them all up, that's when it's hard. That's when you're in your teens. Okay, let's see if I can figure it out. Oh, almost. Okay, that's about it. Have y'all played Ring Around the Rosy? Yeah. Let's make a little ring here. Let's make a little ring. Let's make a little ring because we can get there. You want to play? Get right there. Okay. Now we're going to have to squeeze in. We don't have the room. Okay, squeeze in. Okay. I'm going to be it, okay? Ring, sing with me. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. Upstairs, downstairs, all fall down. Oh, who didn't fall? Oh, you want to be it? You be it. Okay, stand up again. Okay, she did fall, so she'll be it with me. Okay, go around. Ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies. Upstairs, downstairs, all fall down. Oh, I think you lost. You're it. She's it. You come back. Okay. Again, one more time. Oh, well. I think we're supposed to go around. Ring. I forgot that. Let's go around. I forgot that. Ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies. Upstairs, downstairs, all fall down. Whoa! How'd y'all like that? I think y'all like it.
When we were kids, I can't tell you what the girls did because we were 9 boys at home. And by the time she came along, we were old enough that we were too old to play games. We were living in the field.
Play with.
That's why Mama bought her a doll. Okay. Miss Kathy asked me if I could bring to the program today a toy that we had when we were young. Toys. We were too poor. There was no such thing as toys. Now the chances are every time you go to town or you with your mother and father or somebody that you see wants something, you buy. How many of you have a house full of stuffed dolls? We didn't know what a stuffed doll was, whether we were boys or girls. So, you know what we had for Christmas? We had some fruits. And Papa would buy some firecrackers. And that was our Christmas. Of course, we always had a lot of friends and visitors. We had a lot of family from Port Arthur, Texas, and they'd come and visit with us every Christmas, and that was a big thing. But what did we play when we were kids? Wow! We played hide and seek. Did any of you play hide and seek?
Yeah.
Where everybody hides except the one who's it, and he counts to 100? Sometimes we cheat. We'd count to 94, then we'd start. Incidentally, this is for all of you. They opened a closet in the city hall and they found a skeleton. It was the hide-and-seek champion of 1984. All right. Okay. That's your joke. We had different games that we played. You know, out in the country, Everybody had barns. Every farm had a lot of cornfields, cotton fields, sugar cane. Well, after we'd shell the corn to feed to the chickens, or shell the corn and bring the corn to town, and have some cornmeal made so that Mama would make some cornbread and kush-kush, this is what was left after you shelled the corn. Okay? You see how wet it is? Well, how many of you have ever had corncob fights? Well, when we were young, and we weren't working in the fields in case it rained, you know, we'd go and pick cobs. And now, I pray for those that are sick and unfortunate. But in those days, when I was picking cotton, you know what I prayed for?
Rain.
I prayed for rain. And the good Lord never answered me. You know, there's a little boy one night that knelt down and he says, "Dear God, please help me. Tommy's throwing rocks at me." And he says, "Lord, please help me. I spoke to you about that yesterday and you did nothing." So he was, anyway. There was always a lot of corn cobs all over the lots where the barn was. So when we could get enough kids together, guess what we'd do? We'd choose sides. And we had a corn cob fight. Now, hold up. Now, we'd hide. And when somebody's head came out, we'd try and there's Mr. Earl Broussard behind. He's 1 year younger than me, and he was involved in quite a few fights. And like me, he was always on the winning side. Anyway, you can feel that. You can feel it. Feel how heavy it is. Now, one thing that I remember about corn cob fights, now sometimes the corn cobs fell in an area where the cattle and the horses and the pigs had been, and those corn cobs weren't too clean. But a corn cob fight was a corn cob fight. And I'll never forget, one day, a cousin of mine and I were fighting, and he was on the opposite side. And he stuck his head out, and I threw that corn cob, and believe me, folks, that corn cob hit him right here. It hit him so hard that it made an indentation in his forehead of the corn cob fight. Well, that stopped the corn cob fight. But anyway, we won. Now, one of the games that we used to play that was so much fun, and especially you boys, I want you to remember this because you could go back home and play that game. In English, we called it can down. For some reason, the older people, when they play golf, back, one friend of mine the other day was talking with me and I mentioned that. And I said in French, "Tu joues toujours à la vieille three?" "Oh, ouais." Well, la vieille three to the older people was playing golf. There's still some people, some older people that refer to playing golf. "Je suis parti jouer à la vieille three." Well, I'm going to have to use that blackboard to be able to demonstrate.
La vieille three is
La vieille three. Now, the old La vieille three is a mama pig.
a sow.
A sow. How many of you know what a sow is? How many of you know what is the difference between a pig and pork? Very simple. Once a pig has been killed, it's pork. Did you know that, Elisa? Okay. All right. Now, we're going to demonstrate. I'm going to show you what the game can down was. All right. These were the ingredients used to play can down, or in English, la vieille three. Everybody had a stick. Now, something about the stick. If the stick was too long, you couldn't maneuver it real well. Okay? can. Now we're done. Okay. Okay. If your stick was too long, you couldn't maneuver it well. If it was too short, you didn't have good control. If it was too heavy, the other sticks were probably lighter. So you had to have a stick with a lot of maneuverability. Maneuverability to you children is simply this. Have something in your hands that you have complete control of. So, you see how I can handle this stick very well? Now, my wife has never taken that stick in her hands. Because I think if she did, she would be tempted to see how hard the stick is in comparison to my skull. No, I'm just kidding. My wife has never hit me with a stick. Anyway, here's how the game. Okay, the other ingredient is a can. Can down. Okay. Now, imagine, if you will, that this is the ground. Now, we would make a hole in the ground about so big, okay? We'd actually make a round hole. Crazy. All holes are round, right? How much dirt can you take out of a half a hole? There's no such thing as a half a hole. Okay, we would make a hole about so big, and that was the center of the game. Now, that was the center. Imagine that this is the center, and about 10 feet away, we'd make some more holes. Now, let's assume that there were 7 of us playing the game. We would make 6 outside holes. Right, Earl? Correct. Okay. Now, there are 7 of us. Each of us have a stick. Remember this, boys. It's a lot of fun. Each of us have a stick and 1 can. Now, there are 7 of us. The way the game begins, remember, there are 7 of us. There's only 1 can, and there's 6 outside holes. What do? To start the game, we take and we put the can in the middle hole. And each of us put our stick under the can, okay? Imagine, if you will, 6 sticks. Imagine, if you will, 6 sticks. 6 sticks sticking out, sticking in like this, in that hole, and the can is like this. All right? Now, somebody said the word go. Usually it was the one that was oldest or with the biggest stick. Okay? So, what we did, we put the stick under the can. There were 6 sticks. 6 outside holes, 1 in the middle.
7 sticks.
7, yes, excuse me, 7 sticks. And then when we'd say go, everybody would bring their sticks up and the can would fly up. Now the object was for 6 of the 7 to come and put their sticks in the outside hole. Remember, there's 7 of us. There are only 6 holes. So the one who couldn't get a stick in his outside hole, he was it. Now, somewhere around here, there was a can. There were 7 boys with sticks. 6 of them had them in the holes. And the 7th one was it. And his job was to take the can and try and bring it to that hole. Sounds simple, but it really wasn't. And I'll tell you why. When I was trying to bring the can to that middle hole, I had to pass here or here. I had to pass between 2 people that had sticks. And when I was trying to pass between the 2 that had their sticks in the hole, their job was to try and hit the can back outside again. Well, when we would pass with the can to try and bring it over here, and these people would try and hit the can. Then because I was hit, I'd try and put my stick in the hole before he could come back. And if he did, if I did that, then the guy whose stick was in here lost his place because my stick got back before him. So he was hit. And in the process, we would get hit on the shins. You remember that, Earl? In fact, if they would have drafted 10 and 12-year-olds to go into service, not one of us would have made it because of our shins. But anyway, that was a game, and it didn't matter if you were 4 or 5 or 8 or 10. If you had one can, and everybody had a stick. Let's face it, some of us were lucky enough to have an old broom handle. Now, broom handles were straight. They were the classy sticks. The ones that were like this, well, you could tell that we got these out in the woods. Now, speaking of the woods, about a mile southeast of where Earl and I live were maybe, I don't know, 200 or 300 acres of woodland, some high and some low, and almost everybody in the community had cattle in the woods. And of course the woods was full of thorns and vines and snakes and you name it. We would go in the woods and play, and the one thing we didn't have was shoes. So we went in the woods without any shoes. But we always managed, if there were enough of us, to bring a rope and maybe an old saddle tree or a piece of a saddle. And the object was to go and rope a young calf and try and put that saddle on him and ride that calf in the woods. Now that was an experience. They do that now in a rodeo. But with us, there were no people with flags. You jumped on it when you could. How many of you would like to ride a little wild calf with a saddle? Wow. In the woods, without any shoes? You would like that. Well, I see that kids have not changed at all. Anyway, because we were a bunch of boys, and the only time we didn't work was when it was raining or on Sundays. We never worked on Sundays. We never worked on Sundays. That was the games, some of the games that we played. Another game that we played, do any of you have any questions? Do you understand what this game is? If you have any questions, I want you to contact me because I'm going to go help you start a game. It's a lot of fun. You may want to wear long trousers and maybe wear some padding right here because this hurts. They say there's one thing that the good Lord didn't do when he made man and woman. He didn't put enough meat in front of the legs. Okay, all right. Now, this is called Cajun. For the older ones here that speak French, we call that la vieille truie, the old sow. A sow is a mama pig. Okay? All right. You remember playing Roly Holy? Okay. Okay. Here was the game Roly Holy was played.
Leon, you play?
I played it.
Where il l'applaude. Chi c'est che vuole l'applauso? Okay. This is a plain rubber ball. See that? It's got the same size on all sides. You know why people wear wedding rings? And you know why a ring is round? Why they call it a wedding ring? It has no beginning and it has no end. So that a marriage should have no end. Okay? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Roly-poly, or rubber ball. How many of you have been hit with a rubber ball behind the head? It hurts. Or in the back. Anyway, I'm going to put my stick up on you.
Yeah, because you just hit me in the shin.
Okay. Roly-poly. Imagine that this is the ground, okay? We're gonna make 6 holes Well, we're gonna make 4 holes. Okay. Okay, we're gonna make 5 holes. But these holes all are supposed to be straight. Now again, these holes like can down are gonna be about this big. Just big enough for the ball, a ball to roll in. Okay? Roll it, hold it. Remember that. Roll it, hold it. Now, we would play the game this way. One of us would get on either end of the line of the hole. The others would line up. If this was my hole, I'd line up here, and my brother's hole was here, he'd line up here. And we'd take the ball, and we'd roll it like this. You see, I'm on the end. Now roll the ball this way. And I'm going to try and roll it in one of the holes, hopefully in the hole that's furthest away from me. Because the minute I'm going to start rolling that ball, I'm going to start running away. Because whoever's going to catch it is going to try and hit me or one of the other players. Okay? And the object of the game was to wait and let the ball fall in your hole. And when it does, you grab it. But what's interesting is that sometimes if you're here and I'm here and somebody else is rolling the ball, I'm waiting. I think the ball is going to fall in my hole so I can grab it and throw it at somebody else. And while I'm waiting, I'm not running away. While I'm waiting, guess what happens? The ball falls in this hole. And I'm about this far from the guy who's got the ball in his hand. So you know what he does? He whops me. So it's a game of nerves. You have to be very, very careful when you play this, because if the ball falls in your hole, naturally you want to grab the ball and hit somebody. But if it happens that you're waiting for the ball to fall in your hole and it falls in somebody else's hole while you're still watching, you're in trouble. Now, does anybody want to play roly-poly? Okay, well, here's what you do. You go to a store. We used to go to the 5 and 10 cent. How many of you know what a 5 and 10 cent store is? A 5 and 10 cent store used to be, well, I guess we have to use the word. If you go to Walmart's today, you're going to see an area in the store where they have the marbles and the toys and the novelties. Well, that was a 5 and 10 cent store. And you go there wherever you can and find a ball. And get somebody older than you to make some little holes in the ground. And if you're 6 of you, make 6 holes in the ground. If you're 5, make 5 holes. And you roll the ball, and when you catch the ball, now, you can play with a tennis ball. A tennis ball is not going to hurt quite as much as this. Roll it, hold it. Remember, everybody say that. Roll it, hold it. Roll it, hold it. Now, it's not holy in the sense that it's religious. It's holy because you roll it to the hole. And it's called roll it because you roll it, okay? Very good, very good. Y'all have been very nice. How many of you played marbles before? Y'all have played marbles before? You know how to play marbles?
I know how to play marbles.
Okay, let's see. Okay, well, you know, we're just going to look at these marbles. And the one thing that was always hard for, this is a really good ball. The one thing that was hard for a lot of people was how to hold a marble so that you could shoot it. Okay, you see this right here? That's how a lot of people held the marble. And this is the way I held it. Now watch, I'm going to show you something. You see that cannon? I'm going to try and take this marble and hit the bottom of the can. How many of you think I'm going to hit it? Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 friends here. 5. What, you ready? You saw how I missed it? But you saw how fast it was? Okay. Look, you see how I'm holding? What? Okay. Well, the object of the game of marbles is to make a hole, but it's got to be dirt. No grass. It's got to be just plain dirt with some because the dust helps to stop the marble from moving too fast, okay? So you make a hole about, a circle about so big. You just make a circle in the ground. Then everybody who plays put 1 or 2 or 3 marbles right in the middle. And then everybody gets outside and they lag, okay? You get about 5 feet from the circle and everybody's got a big shooter like this. And you throw it to the marbles that's in the middle of the circle. And the one who gets to hit a marble that goes out of the circle is the first one to hit. So then he gets at the circle, but on the outside of the circle, and he tries to hit a marble, and if you can hit that marble out of the circle, well, then you get another shot. When I was a kid, everybody had marbles. The better players had more. Everybody had a can of marbles. It's unreal, unless you've heard a can of marbles, you haven't lived. How many of you are 50 years old? Okay? Okay. On a place I can't connect. Leo, you still have some marbles? You still have some at your house? Would you give them to me? See, I lost all of mine. I blew it. But anyway, incidentally, when I started going to school, the worst thing you could do in school, besides talking French, was playing marbles. If somebody caught you playing marbles at noon or at recess, you got your fanny tan. In other words, that was a no-no. You didn't play cards at school. You didn't drink whiskey. You didn't chew gum. You didn't put your gum under the desk. And whatever you did, you didn't talk in school. You called the teacher, Mrs. So-and-so. And when she spoke to you, you answered, yes, ma'am. How many of you have learned to say that at school? Yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. And how many of you say that to your parents? How many of you say, yeah, nah? When I grew up, that was one of the things that we remembered to do. We never went to our parents when they were talking and interrupted them and said, hey, wow. We never passed between two grown-ups. We always went behind them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's one game I want y'all to remember.
Were you allowed to dirty your knees if you played marbles?
No.
Who?
Who took my knife? Oh, I haven't. Oh, incidentally, when I went to school, I had 2 pairs of pants and 2 pairs of shirts. 2 shirts. Both khaki. And they were all amidonné.
Starch.
There was starch. Y'all don't know what starch clothes is. It's all wash and wear. But in the old days, after the clothes was washed by hand and it was semi-dry, Mama would use some starch and water and actually wet the clothes a little bit and then roll it, and then she would iron it. Well, when that iron passed on that clothes that was starched, it was stiff. I wore 1 pants and a shirt 3 days. I wore the other pants 2 days. And please, don't come home with grass stains on your knees. In other words, I respected my clothes as much as I respected myself and my mother and my father and my brothers and sisters. How many of you here pick up your clothes when you change? Okay, there's 3 of them. Okay? Why don't you pick your clothes up? Who picks your clothes up? Are your hands sick with arthritis that you can't pick it up? You see how life has changed? We live in a wonderful world today. We live in such a beautiful, beautiful atmosphere. Okay, we played with a knife. That's one thing that was a treasure when we were kids. A knife. A knife. And,
Dan, how did Mama wash that clothes?
okay, we're going to do that another time. we're going to talk, we're going to hopefully have a try. Can't we have a program one day? Huh? Yeah. Can you get another $5,000 now? Okay, you see this? Everybody my age and older knew what this was. This was a battleau. A battleau was the most common pocket knife that you could have. Now you notice there are two blades, a long one and a short one. We would take the knife and put the long blade straight up and the short blade at a 90-degree angle. And we would play la cambée. How many of you remember that? Jouer la cambée. Okay. I don't remember what the prize was, but this was a game that was rather dangerous in that you didn't want to get in the way of the one who was doing it. And here was, kids, watch this. Here is what we would do. We would take the knife and stick the blade slightly in the ground. You see that? Okay? Then we would do this with it. Hold your feet. Then we would do this with it. Okay? And the object was to try and get the knife to stick in the ground with the big blade. If it did, that was maybe 2 points. If it stuck in the small one, it was a different point. I'm trying to get this. No, it won't. Well, anyway, you see how life was different when I was a young man? No television. Another thing we played. You know, it was a rare commodity, something we treasured, that we'd walk over water together. Whatever. One of the things we treasured was a pop stopper. Un bouchon de pop. Sometimes we had pockets full of pop stoppers. You know what we'd do with them? We'd make a line in the dirt. Then we'd all line up at the same distance, and we'd throw one stopper. And the one who got closest to the line would win the stoppers. Well, later on, as we got a little bit more educated and we worked a little bit, we'd go to school and we'd play for pennies. But that's how our bad habits started. I remember a friend of mine, my older brother, who always managed to have some money. He played with one of the Goldberg daughters. They'd play for 50 cents. I thought it was just unbelievable. But anyway, on jouait au bouchon. We'd take the stop and we'd throw it and try and get as close to the line as we could. And the one who got closest to the line would win whatever stoppers had been thrown. And sometimes you'd get home with a pocket full of stoppers. It didn't mean anything. You couldn't eat it. You couldn't burn it in the stove, but it made you feel good. So when I was a little boy, and as I grew older, incidentally, we didn't have electricity at home till I was probably 13. And I remember one of the greatest thrills of my life.
You were older than that because I was 15.
Oh yeah,
I was 15,
Okay.
so you was
Yeah.
older.
Well,
I was 16.
you were 16? Well, whatever age I was, before we had electricity, before Slimco took pity on us, a nice man, a Mr. Broussard from Abbeville, started a nice delivery with an old truck 3 times a week. And Papa bought a nice chest. You know, it was kind of like what you have now, but it was much bigger. And it was made out of, the outside was wood and the inside was lined with tin. And we'd buy enough ice to last 2 or 3 days. And then we started drinking cold milk.
Wow.
On Sundays, we had ice water, and we could drink all we wanted. You remember that, Earl? Oh, boy. Now, ice water doesn't tempt me anymore. Anyway, how many of you are going to remember this can down and play it? What you need is a light stick. You can't use a hockey stick. It's got to be made out of wood. But remember that. It's a wonderful game. Okay?
Don't cut Mama's broom.
Okay, you know another thing, everybody know, yes, sir.
I have a question. When you were shooting marbles, did your hand cross that line? Yes.
No, no.
Okay, what did you?
Punch, punch.
Punch it.
Yeah, if you crossed up, if you started shooting and you did this, in other words, if this is the line and you started shooting and you crossed the line before you let the marble go, we all said you funched. It was a word for cheating. You could not get across that line. If you got across the line, then you lost your turn. And listen, losing your turn could mean the difference of losing quite a few marbles. And the richest kid in the neighborhood was the one with a pocket full of Broussard pulp and a can full of marbles. Okay? That's it.
Any more questions?
Did y'all play hide and seek?
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
What's the French name for hide and seek?
Cachet fait.
Did
Cachet
you
fait.
ever figure out where that cachet fait is the hide of birthday or hide of holiday?
Yes, I
Cachet
was
fait.
wondering
Well-
the way.
I heard something that I want to add to it. I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah. I would say that cachet fait was the word fête means a holiday, means you don't work, means you play cachet, you cachet during a fête.
Okay. There was a lady from USL that was studying this. She went to St. Martinsville or one of the places along the Chapelaya.
Yeah.
And she asked an old colored man, she said, what kind of games did you have when you were a kid? Well, he said, we had a game that we called cachet fouet.
Wait, wait.
He said we'd hide daddy's whip on Sunday
Yeah.
when we played the game in the barnyard somewhere in the hay. And the one who found that whip had the right to chase the others and crack that whip out and scare them good. So I'm wondering,
Well,
That was probably.
it could well be. You know, so many of the things that we still take for granted today are things that ascended to us from blacks. We were part of their social life, and later on, we learned a lot from them, and it's very, very possible. My father told me as a kid that I had some Indian blood in me. And I wondered, well, about 30, 35 years ago, my wife and I, who are both Broussards, decided to have our family trees made so we could determine how far our common ancestor was. And my father, like I said before, told me as a kid that I had some Indian blood. And when Miss Helen Thompson did my family tree, she did find several generations ago that true, one of my great-grandmothers, grandfathers, married an Indian prince, and her name is Dorothy Maria Griga, the daughter of an Indian prince. And it's then I realized why it is that whenever we played cowboys and Indians, I always played the part of an Indian.
Still have any more questions for Meme or Bernice or Daniel?
I was trying to remember why I was so excited when our family would receive a new Sears catalog. And it wasn't for the bathroom, but it was for the dolls that you could cut out. You didn't have
Paper dolls.
paper dolls.
Paper dolls.
Cut out your paper dolls out of the Sears catalog.
Yeah.
And dream about the things we would
And
like.
the furniture, yes.
The first thing we probably saw as kids were pictures of things in a Sears catalog. You know, I can say this because we're all either male or female. There's an old lady that called the Sears company and says she wanted some toilet tissue. Well, the lady says, well, what's the catalog number? She says, catalog number? What are you talking about? Well, she says, get your catalog and give me the catalog number. She says, lady, if I had a catalog, I wouldn't be ordering this. And hey, that's not too far from the truth. Before we had toilets, we had outhouses. And you see, back in the old days, nobody took a bath every day. And it really didn't matter because we all smelled the same. And then somebody invented some perfume. Well, the first perfume that was used years ago by my mother was not perfume. It was vanilla extract. And listen, what smells better than a homemade cake made with vanilla seasoning? Okay, anybody else have any questions? Now,
What about one of those? You ever been in there? It was popular with us.
okay, you know what this is? Connais quoi c'est ça ici? Quoi ça on appelait ça en français, Numa? Un clé anglaise. Un clé anglaise. Anglaise is English. Many years ago, one of my sister-in-law's cousin from France was home, and he was telling us that he, as a Frenchman, he was taken a prisoner by the Germans. And his job was to drive a German colonel around. And he says, while we were driving, and of course he's telling me this in French, while he's telling me this, he says, on a eu pneu plat. Okay, how many of you French-speaking people know what a pneu plat is? It's a flat tire. We don't use the word, we use flat tire. We've Englishized our language. But anyway, he got down, the Frenchman says, I got down and I looked and I saw the pneu plat. So he says, I went back to the colonel and I asked him in French, est-ce que vous avez une clé anglaise? In English translated means, do you have an English wrench? And the German answered him, absolument non. On a une clé allemande. He was telling the Frenchman that they did not have an English wrench, they had a German wrench. And it's from the German wrench that the Stilson, the crescent wrench came to be. Now, the word Stilson, for you older people, when we said a Stilson, everybody knew what it was. It was a pipe wrench. You know who invented the pipe wrench? A Stilson company. I have an old pipe wrench at home, and it's made by C.W. Stilson and Company. Anyway, that's the end.